Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Well, hello there. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you may be. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your support to this podcast. I really appreciate it. You have an opportunity, if you like to financially support this podcast as well, you can find the link in the show notes. But most importantly, please continue to listen. Please continue to share this podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Last week, I made a YouTube video. I have a YouTube page, YouTube channel, I Can Do with Benjamin Lee. You can find that on my blog page, benjaminlee.blog, where you can find really all of my resources, books, and things like that. And I want to share something with you that I had shared last week that I think will be important. And that is some things that I've learned along the way. I'm 43 years old. It's something that I have seen, and looking back when I was in my 20s, if I knew this and really identified it more in my life, then I know I probably would be in a much maybe improved situation. My life right now is really great. I'm really thankful. I'm happy and blessed with the things that I have and the family that I have. There are some things looking back that I certainly could have avoided and, put myself in a position where I could have been further along with some other things. And so I want to share this with you. Whether you are in your 20s, your 30s, or 40s, or even your 50s, this will serve you well. Okay? Are you ready? Get a sheet of paper. All right? Now, first, I'm going to set this up. And I'm going to share with you a story of a gentleman that I knew that I really saw this in his life. And it's easy to see things in other people, but sometimes it can be hard to see things in ourselves. That's why we have to look at the mirror. We have to look at the mirror and then really own what we are seeing in the mirror, whether we like it or not. So this gentleman would come to me, and he had some issues. He was on some medication, and I could always tell when he was off of his medication because his whole demeanor, conversation, things that he was sharing with me, I could always see, okay, he must not be on his medication. So when I would ask him, hey, have you been taking your medication? He would always say, well, no, because I feel fine. I feel fine. Things are going great. And so I would have to remind him, well, this is why you need to continue your medication. You need to continue your medication because things really are going well. And that's the biggest reason as to why things are going great. But for some reason, well, not for some reason, he fell into a pattern that many people fall into, including myself. As soon as things got really well and felt great, well, then he stopped the very things that got him there. Do you see that? So the very things that made him or got him to where he was, as soon as things started going really well, he stopped, which then would put him in this cycle of going back and forth, back and forth. Well, that's what we have to avoid. And I wish I knew this in my 20s and in my 30s, and even now in my 40s, I'm much more aware of it. And so there are some things that we need to do along the way. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Today's show is sponsored by the Still Waters Counseling with Julie Adams. You need a counselor with life experience who cares for you. That person is certainly Julie Adams. Sometimes it helps to talk, to unload hurts with those who listen with empathy while sharing the same biblical moral frame of reference. It also helps to receive constructive suggestions that move toward solutions in a more positive journey. Life is hard, and some days it gets harder. You do not have to go on this journey alone. If you're in need, please reach out to Julie Adams with the Still Waters. That is STILL waterslife.com. stillwaterslife.com to set up an appointment. All right, so the things that are working really well. I understand that there are times we have to make some adjustments, that we have to make some pivots when it comes to, okay, things are working well and things that have gotten me to point A may not get me to point B necessarily, but that's not always the case. So things that are working really well that get you to the point where you can say, I feel fine, perfect. Keep doing them. So let me give you some examples of what that will look like. So for me, vitamin D, I know the importance of vitamin D. Vitamin D is not actually a vitamin, it's more of a hormone. A lot of individuals, particularly men, are deficient in vitamin D. So it's very important, and women as well. It's very important that you check your vitamin D levels and make sure that they are normal. They can have a lot of effects, or you will feel a lot of effects when your vitamin D is not where it needs to be. So I had mine checked last week or a couple of weeks ago. Thank the Lord, my vitamin D is normal. I'm quite happy with where it is. Now, how did I get it there? Okay. Well, number one, supplementation. Number two, going out on walks at least 15 minutes with skin exposed to the sun to get vitamin D in that form as well. And then also you can get it through diet. More often or not, I know that supplementation is going to be necessary. So now I have a choice. My levels are normal. I can be extremely happy, which I am, and I can say, okay, great. I can stop going outside and getting 15 minutes of sun. I got that from a book by Dr. Susan Kleiner. I had her on this podcast, by the way, last year as well. I would highly recommend you check out that podcast episode as well. And so I can tell myself, or I could tell myself, well, it's normal. I feel great. I'll just kind of slow down doing these things. No, that is not the right decision, Ben. I'm talking to myself now, all right? That's not the right decision, but those are things that can easily happen, whether it's with our vitamin D supplementation or with a particular fitness routine where we feel really great because we've been jogging 2 or 3 times a week or lifting 3 or 4 days a week. That's fantastic. But don't stop the very thing that has gotten you to this point. You know, we can do this with nutrition, with fitness. Think about finances. So Nikki and I, we've learned this the hard way, all right, where we have been without any credit cards for 3 years because we know our habits when it comes to credit cards. We kept learning the hard way. You can learn and live, or you can live and learn. Now, some things you can live and learn by, all right? How to make an omelet, live and learn. Who cares? It's an omelet. You can make another one. But some things we don't have to keep living and learning. We can learn and live. So we need to learn when things are going well and things that are helping us are working. Well, don't revert back to the things that were not working, but keep doing the very things that are working. And I'm beginning to have some thoughts about why sometimes we do this. And I'll share, I'm going to sit on these thoughts for now, but I'll share these, Lord willing, with you in a later podcast. So I want you to think about yourself. Have you noticed this habit or trend in your life where something is working tremendously? It's working fantastic. And now you're really saying, you really are saying, I feel great. I feel fine. And then you stop it. Have you seen that? Well, if you have, why are you stopping it? Just to start this whole cycle or journey or process all over again. Well, that doesn't seem to be cost effective, time effective. And eventually, what if we don't get more opportunities to start all over again and to build back up to where we were? So really think about this idea. I wish I knew this in my 20s. One of the biggest places would be with finances, if I'm being very, very honest and vulnerable with you, where, you set things up and you just don't touch them. You leave it alone. Things are working great. Perfect. Keep going down that path. So we do the best that we can do, but we have to really analyze and look at where we are and ask ourselves, okay, why am I going back to things that aren't working anymore when I feel fine, I feel great because of these very actions or steps? Keep doing the things that are helping you to get down that path. And obviously we're talking about things that are good and moral and right in the sight of God. So this is something that I wish I knew. So I want to share this and teach this certainly to my son Joshua. The things that get us to where we want to be, well, that's no time just to say, okay, I'm done. I made it. I can just stop now. That's what we see far too often when people lose weight or they get healthy or they overcome a sickness. I feel much better. And then they just stop. Don't do that. Start. Continue, press on with the very things that have gotten you to that point. Does that make sense? So take a look at your life. What area of your life have you seen where you have done this before? Where you get to a really great place and then you stop the very things that have gotten you there. Now, I have some additional thoughts I'm going to share with you as to why sometimes this happens, but maybe first, just identify, have I done this? Why do I do this? Does that make any sense at all? Stay tuned for more. I can do, so can you. Look, keep going. If you have gone down the wrong path, get back up. Make the next best and right decision. All right? Take care. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are in the need or are looking for more motivation in your life, feel free to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog, where you can find hundreds of encouraging, motivational blog posts on a variety of subjects. You can find all of my books, which can also be found on Amazon.com, and other podcast interviews with a variety of people. I hope this helps. Please leave me a rating and a review. I can do, and so can you. Take care, and God bless.